FBI Special Agent Marcus Thompson was making the most catastrophic mistake of his 15-year career when he arrived at Denzel Washington's Beverly Hills home at 6:45 a.m. on Tuesday, September 12, 2024, carrying federal arrest warrants. Thompson believed he had the authority to arrest the 69-year-old Academy Award winner on charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, human trafficking, and operating a criminal enterprise. The charges federal prosecutors were calling the most shocking celebrity crime case in Hollywood history, carried up to 35 years in federal prison. But what FBI agent Thompson didn't know was that Denzel Washington had just completed a 3-month undercover operation that saved 89 children from one of the largest human trafficking networks in American entertainment history. This story began 6 months earlier when Denzel Washington received a disturbing phone call from his longtime friend and former Marine Sergeant James Mitchell, who worked as a private security consultant for high-profile Hollywood events. Mitchell had been hired to provide security for exclusive parties hosted by entertainment industry executives, but what he witnessed at these gatherings made him sick to his stomach. Children as young as 12 were being brought to these parties under the guise of aspiring young actors. But Mitchell quickly realized these kids were victims of systematic exploitation and trafficking. When Mitchell approached law enforcement, he was told that without concrete evidence, federal agencies couldn't penetrate the sophisticated network. The trafficking ring was run by powerful Hollywood executives, talent agents, and federal officials being paid to look the other way. According to FBI analysis, the network had operated for 8 years and trafficked over 400 children through entertainment industry connections. Make sure to subscribe to find out how Denzel Washington infiltrated this criminal network and the shocking discovery he made about who was really running this operation. Now, let's see how America's most respected actor became an undercover hero to save these innocent children. Denzel Washington made a decision that would put his life, career, and family at risk. Using his status as one of Hollywood's most trusted figures, he agreed to work with Mitchell to gather evidence of the criminal operation from the inside. Washington leveraged his relationships with industry executives to gain access to the exclusive parties where the crimes were taking place, wearing hidden recording devices and documenting the illegal activities. Dr. Rebecca Martinez from UCLA analyzed the criminal network's methods. Children were recruited through fake talent agencies promising movie roles. Once separated from families, victims were kept in luxury compounds disguised as acting academies, where handlers used manipulation and false promises to maintain control. Share your thoughts in the comments. How important do you think it is for celebrities to use their influence to protect vulnerable children? What would you do if you discovered something this horrific? Washington's investigation revealed the network operated nationwide with connections to New York, Miami, and Las Vegas, valued at over $200 million annually. The organization supplied children to entertainment predators, wealthy businessmen, politicians, and international clients. Digital forensics later discovered detailed client databases with over 2,000 active customers worldwide. Perhaps the most shocking aspect of Washington's investigation was discovering the level of law enforcement corruption protecting the trafficking network. Several FBI agents, LAPD detectives, and federal prosecutors were receiving monthly payments ranging from $50,000 to $200,000 to ignore evidence, dismiss investigations, and even provide advance warning when raids were being planned. The corruption went so deep that legitimate law enforcement officers couldn't trust their own colleagues, which explained why previous attempts to investigate the network had failed. But the trafficking network had become suspicious of Washington's activities. When organization leaders noticed that the actor was asking too many questions and seemed unusually interested in the children's welfare, they began to suspect he might be working with law enforcement. The network's security chief, former CIA operative David Rodriguez, started conducting surveillance on Washington and discovered that he had been meeting regularly with James Mitchell and other individuals with military and law enforcement backgrounds. Rodriguez developed a plan to neutralize Washington before he could expose the trafficking operation. Working with corrupt FBI agent Marcus Thompson, who had been on the trafficking network's payroll for 3 years, Rodriguez fabricated evidence to make it appear that Washington was actually the leader of the criminal organization. They created fake financial records showing payments from Washington to various shell companies, manipulated photographs to show him in compromising situations, and even forged documents suggesting that he was using his celebrity status to recruit victims for the network. The evidence manufactured by Rodriguez and Thompson was sophisticated enough to convince federal prosecutors who weren't aware of the larger corruption. Fake banking records showed millions of dollars flowing through Washington's accounts to offshore companies allegedly used for trafficking operations. Manipulated audio recordings made it sound like Washington was coordinating victim transport and discussing payment schedules with co-conspirators. Thompson spent over $4 million of trafficking money to create this false evidence, employing professional document forgers, audio specialists, and corrupt financial experts to make the frame-up appear legitimate. The most diabolical aspect of the frame-up was how Rodriguez and Thompson turned Washington's heroic rescue activities into evidence of criminal behavior. His meetings with Mitchell were portrayed as criminal conspiracy sessions. His presence at the exclusive parties was characterized as him overseeing trafficking operations. Even his efforts to help children escape were twisted to make it appear that he was moving victims between different locations for exploitation. The frame-up was so convincing that federal prosecutors authorized Thompson's arrest warrant without realizing they were about to destroy the one person who could expose the real criminals. When Thompson received authorization to arrest Washington on September 12th, he was so confident in the fabricated evidence that he alerted major news networks to be present for the arrest. "Today marks a dark day for American entertainment," Thompson announced to CNN, Fox News, and ABC reporters gathered outside Washington's home. "We are arresting one of Hollywood's most celebrated figures for crimes that betray the trust placed in him by millions of fans and, more importantly, by the vulnerable children he was supposed to protect." When Thompson and federal agents arrived at Washington's Beverly Hills home, they found the actor calmly waiting for them in his study, surrounded by boxes of evidence documenting the real trafficking operation. Washington had anticipated that the network would eventually try to silence him, and had prepared for this moment by organizing all the evidence he had collected over 3 months of dangerous undercover work. "Agent Thompson," Washington said with the same commanding presence he brought to his movie roles, "you're about to make a terrible mistake that will destroy the only chance we have to save these children." Thompson's confidence began to waver when he saw the extensive documentation Washington had assembled. The actor's study contained detailed photographs of trafficking locations, audio recordings of network leaders discussing their operations, financial records showing money flows to corrupt officials, and most importantly, testimonies from 89 children who Washington had helped escape from the network over the previous 3 months. The evidence was meticulously organized in chronological order, with each piece of documentation corroborated by multiple sources and verified through independent channels. Agent Thompson, before you arrest me, I think you should know that I've been working with legitimate federal agents to document the largest child trafficking network in American history, Washington announced, pointing to FBI agent Patricia Williams, who stepped out from behind the study's bookshelf. Williams was part of a secret federal task force that had been investigating corruption within the FBI itself and had been working with Washington for the past 2 months to gather evidence not just of the trafficking network, but also of the corrupt agents protecting it. The evidence Washington presented completely dismantled Thompson's fabricated case. Banking records showed that the suspicious transactions Thompson claimed were evidence of Washington's criminal activity were actually payments the actor had made to legitimate organizations helping trafficking victims, including safe houses, legal aid societies, and child psychology centers. The manipulated audio recordings were easily debunked through digital forensic analysis, and the forged documents contained technical errors that proved they had been manufactured rather than originating from legitimate sources. Agent Williams announced as she placed Thompson under arrest, "Marcus Thompson, you are under federal arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, corruption of federal authority, obstruction of justice, and taking bribes from criminal organizations. Your 3-year involvement with this trafficking network has been documented through financial records, recorded conversations, and testimony from multiple witnesses. You are facing life in federal prison without the possibility of parole." Thompson's arrest was just the beginning of the largest law enforcement corruption bust in FBI history. Washington's evidence revealed that 23 FBI agents, 47 LAPD officers, 12 federal prosecutors, and 8 federal judges had been compromised by the trafficking network. The corrupt officials had received a combined total of over $50 million in bribes over 8 years, creating a protective shield around the criminal organization that made it virtually untouchable through traditional law enforcement channels. The scope of Washington's rescue operation stunned federal investigators when they realized what the actor had accomplished while working undercover. Over 3 months, he had systematically identified 89 children being held by the trafficking network and coordinated their safe extraction through a network of trusted contacts, including former military personnel, legitimate social workers, and uncorrupted law enforcement officers. Each rescue operation had been carefully planned to avoid alerting the trafficking network while ensuring the children's safety and psychological well-being. Washington used his celebrity status to access trafficking locations while employing sophisticated surveillance techniques to map operations and identify key personnel. His Oakland Military Academy background provided tactical skills valuable for planning rescue operations without triggering the network's security measures. The children Washington rescued ranged in age from 8 to 17 and came from all across the United States. Many had been missing for months or even years, with their families having given up hope of ever finding them. The trafficking network had specifically targeted children from broken homes, foster care systems, and economically disadvantaged communities where their disappearances were less likely to generate extensive law enforcement attention. Washington worked with child psychologists to ensure that each rescue was conducted in a way that minimized additional trauma to victims who had already suffered unimaginable abuse. When federal agents raided the trafficking network's primary compound in Malibu, they discovered evidence of the most sophisticated criminal organization ever uncovered in American law enforcement history. The facility was disguised as an exclusive boarding school for aspiring young actors, complete with professional-grade film studios, luxury dormitories, and even legitimate educational facilities. However, hidden throughout the compound were monitoring systems, security equipment, and holding areas designed to prevent victims from escaping while maintaining the illusion of a voluntary program. The financial records seized during the raids revealed that the trafficking network was generating over $200 million annually through various revenue streams. In addition to direct payments from clients, the organization was involved in producing and distributing illegal content, operating online platforms for connecting traffickers with customers, and even running legitimate entertainment businesses as money laundering operations. The network's sophisticated financial structure involved hundreds of shell companies, offshore accounts, and cryptocurrency transactions designed to hide the source and destination of criminal proceeds. Washington's investigation uncovered international connections that shocked federal authorities. The trafficking network wasn't just operating domestically, but was part of a global organization with connections to similar operations in Europe, Asia, and South America. American children were being transported internationally for exploitation, while foreign victims were being brought into the United States through the same network. The organization was essentially running an international marketplace for child trafficking, with the Hollywood connection providing both high-value clients and a sophisticated infrastructure for their operations. The network exploited legitimate entertainment infrastructure to facilitate crimes. Talent agencies, modeling schools, and film studios provided cover for trafficking operations. Children were lured through promises of entertainment careers, making it difficult to recognize they were being trafficked until escape became impossible. When news of the massive trafficking network and Washington's heroic role in exposing it broke, it sent shockwaves through both the entertainment industry and law enforcement communities nationwide. Major studios launched internal investigations to determine if their facilities had been used by the trafficking network, while law enforcement agencies across the country began reviewing cold cases of missing children to see if they might be connected to the organization. The scandal prompted congressional hearings on child protection and led to comprehensive reforms in how missing children cases are investigated and coordinated between agencies. Washington's rescue operation became a case study taught at FBI training academies and social work schools across the country. His systematic approach to gathering evidence while simultaneously conducting rescue operations had exposed a criminal network that traditional law enforcement methods had failed to penetrate for nearly a decade. Legal experts called his work the most significant child protection operation ever conducted by a civilian, and his methods were incorporated into federal protocols for investigating trafficking networks with high-level protection. The evidence collected by Washington led to the largest asset forfeiture operation in U.S. law enforcement history related to human trafficking. Federal agents were able to trace and seize over $400 million in assets connected to the trafficking network, including luxury real estate, vehicles, artwork, and offshore financial accounts. These recovered assets were used to fund victim support services, including long-term psychological counseling, educational support, and safe housing for the 89 children Washington had rescued and hundreds of other victims identified through the investigation. The trials of the trafficking network leaders became landmark cases in federal criminal law. prosecutors used Washington's evidence to secure convictions against 127 individuals involved in the organization, including entertainment industry executives, talent agents, corrupt law enforcement officers, and international coordinators. The lead organizer, entertainment mogul Richard Sterling, received a life sentence without parole, while corrupt FBI Agent Thompson was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. The trials featured emotional testimony from rescued victims and their families, with many crediting Washington with saving their children's lives. The ripple effects of Washington's investigation extended far beyond the immediate arrests and convictions. His work prompted a complete overhaul of how federal agencies investigate and coordinate responses to human trafficking, leading to the creation of specialized task forces with enhanced oversight and accountability measures. The investigation also resulted in new legislation requiring entertainment industry businesses to implement enhanced screening and reporting procedures to prevent their facilities from being exploited by criminal organizations. 6 months after the network's exposure, Denzel Washington was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the FBI Director's Award for Exceptional Service to the Nation. His investigation had not only rescued 89 children but had exposed a criminal network that law enforcement agencies had been unable to penetrate for years. The White House ceremony featured appearances by several of the children Washington had rescued, many of whom had begun the process of healing and rebuilding their lives with their families. The entertainment industry underwent significant changes following Washington's investigation. New industry-wide protocols were established for working with child actors, including mandatory background checks for all personnel, enhanced supervision requirements, and direct reporting channels to federal authorities for suspicious activities. Major studios also implemented comprehensive training programs to help employees recognize signs of trafficking and exploitation, ensuring that the legitimate entertainment industry could never again be used as cover for such horrific crimes. Washington's investigation established new legal precedents for civilian cooperation with federal law enforcement in trafficking cases, and created mandatory reporting requirements for suspected child exploitation in entertainment industry settings. His work demonstrated how individuals with unique access and resources could play crucial roles in protecting vulnerable populations when traditional law enforcement channels had been compromised by corruption. The case also led to the establishment of the National Child Protection Database, a federal system that tracks missing children cases, suspected trafficking activities, and reports of exploitation across all jurisdictions. This database prevents criminals from exploiting gaps between different law enforcement agencies and ensures that patterns of abuse can be identified and investigated more effectively, potentially preventing future victims from falling into trafficking networks. Washington's operation prompted creation of specialized victim support services for trafficking survivors. These programs, funded by seized criminal assets, provide comprehensive psychological counseling, education, medical care, and legal advocacy to help victims rebuild their lives and safely reintegrate with families. What started as one man's decision to use his celebrity status to protect vulnerable children became the most significant anti-trafficking operation in American history, leading to hundreds of arrests, millions in recovered assets, the rescue of 89 children, and comprehensive reforms in how society protects its most vulnerable members from exploitation and abuse. We want to hear from you. How important do you think it is for public figures to use their influence to protect vulnerable children? Have you ever suspected trafficking or exploitation in your community and wondered what to do about it? Denzel Washington's investigation shows how individual courage and action can make a difference even when traditional systems fail to protect those who need help most. Share your thoughts about child protection and celebrity responsibility in the comments below, and let us know what you think can be done to better protect children from trafficking and exploitation. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you stories about heroes who fight for justice and protection of the innocent. So don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content exposing the fight against trafficking and corruption in our society.